Just by looking at this video's thumbnail, you can tell this is going to be something I really want to talk about, especially going into more info about the drawing's setting if you watched 2 of my past videos. At one point, I did bring up the mention of the Sherway Gardens shopping mall, although such mention of this said mall and topic about such buildings were something I didn't go in depth with in commentary. So in short, this video is going to be about the drawing featured in the thumbnail and a bit about lost media. So with nothing else in mind, let's get started on the video. The idea of this commission actually began from at one point in my life about 2 years ago. I actually had a dream that took place in Sherway Gardens prior to how it looks today. If you remember those 2 commentary videos of mine about malls, my favorite feature of such buildings were the water fountains. So in the dream, it actually started with me walking into the middle of the center area. However, there was one major difference, with the middle area replaced with a very shallow pool of water. And in that setting, I remember looking around and observing the interior of the mall. Walking out of the water and heading towards the stairs of the food court. I didn't climb the stairs, however, I remember at that moment I looked up. I observed the upper level, which was the food court. There wasn't much else to observe, as my memory of what I can even recall of the mall wasn't perfect. Unable to recall anything beyond the well-known areas. For the entire moment I was there, I was the only one present at the building. It wasn't scary, dark, or eerie in tone, like a setting in a forest or some nightmare. However, the lighting conditions I remember were on a cloudy day, which feels out of touch for how the mall tends to look during the hours it's open, because usually in the center area it can get very sunny. But other than a comment about lighting conditions, the middle water area, it lacked a barrier around it, so it was easy for me to just walk in and out with no one in my way. The glass barrier with wooden handles you see in the final work are additions I told the artist to include, and thank goodness I did, because without the glass barrier idea, while deviating from what I saw in my dream, the glass barrier actually made the middle water area look better and not boring. After all, even he found it surprising that the middle area did not feature any fountains, although maybe looking back, he did propose the idea of drawing fish in the water, but I declined it. Maybe I should have accepted that addition to the work. So February 8th came along, and this was the day I first came across the artist, Mitsutenari. He was nice enough to answer my question rather quickly, which I was satisfied with, because to locate an artist who could draw shopping mall interior architecture is difficult, so I didn't have much of a choice. So fast forward to the following day, February 9th. This is where we talked about how the setting was going to be established. However, at that start, it was easy enough for me to explain everything. This is another case where I had to tell an artist to draw based on what I'm describing without image references. But I did, as a matter of fact, take photos of how Sherway Gardens looks today as reference. Thus, he was able to sketch out what I was describing. But of course, during the exchanges, I had to make corrections on those sketches in order to better explain what was asked for. So I first began at an alternate perspective as opposed to what the final work was supposed to show. We first focused on the water in the middle and how the surroundings looked. This is where the exchanges started. Specifically, and even though this was only the start, it was difficult for the artist to figure things out after I explained what what was supposed to happen. So even at that moment where things weren't presented with what I wanted, I actually had to install Source Filmmaker to create low effort scenes in order to capture as close as possible on what I wanted, which actually gave him a better idea on how the water would look. Then on the 10th of February, this is where the idea of using photographs as a camera angle reference came into play. But bear in mind, the photos that were used as reference involved using photos online. On screen are the following reference images I marked out in paint to show the approximate location, how the quote-unquote camera is positioned and where it's looking. This was a major trial and error because we were trying to come up with an agreement on how we can accomplish a close-up shot like in this photograph, but at the same time have the camera capture tiny bits of the made-up middle water area. We also had a disagreement on lighting, but I actually agreed on what he proposed because of how more natural the setting actually looked. But when anyone looks at this photo of the stairs leading up to the food court, this is where lots of details are found. Thus, if one was to draw artwork of this area, there would be a lot to capture. Just take a look at the stores, the stairs, the signs, the lights attached, and anything you can make out in the further out sections of the photograph. So February 11th marked the start of ironing out background details all the way to the 15th, whereas after the 15th and all the way to the 28th focused on ironing out the characters. But there were two things to note. The original one finished on the 27th, but I spotted an error on the sunglasses that actually featured the wrong lens color pattern. So he was nice enough to fix that. And there was one error I noticed from the artwork featuring Essex with her Camaro. I never noticed until now, but this error is a welcomed one. The Bass Pro shirt in question is missing the signature on it. The background used as reference, this was already easy enough for the artist to pull off, and I made the right decision to commission the drawing to use this specific photo for the scene, because anywhere else in Sherway Gardens, such as what's behind the stairs, are unfortunately lost for the most part. And during the whole ordeal, it wasn't without difficulty in bringing up how everything was supposed to be drawn. This was the most back and forth I had to deal with when trying to iron out details for the drawing to ensure everything was done correctly. And before I move on to the next topic in this video, here's a quick summary as to how long it took for this artwork to be completed. It began on the 9th of February, which started out with communications with the artist, along with gathering up image references and explanations and ironing out the starting sketches to ensure everything started out correctly. Then fast forward to the next day from the 11th to the 15th served as the many days of revisions and double checks to ensure everything turned out correctly for the background. Then starting on the same day on the 15th all the way to the 27th served as the final days of ironing out the characters, but it actually finished on the 28th where he fixed that one error. One possible idea that inspired the water in the middle, if I had to narrow things down as to what could have inspired this to conjure up in my dream, there is this photo of the Don Mills shopping center I came across a while ago. And judging from the photo, it looks like the water is situated in the middle section of the mall, or at least in a certain area of a hallway. And this photograph, to this day, I still believe this is one of the things that contributed to my mind that used such reference to create such a scene in that dream. But it's not the only thing responsible, as I've seen water fountains from many malls before, and remember, what malls used to be can be more or less seen as lost media. Lost media is lost media, unfortunately, as I have no other way to describe it. When bringing in the topic on shopping malls, I dare say it shares the same level of being forgotten, like vehicles that are no longer in production. And because this video revolves around an artwork of a shopping mall, I would have to start with bringing that up first. So when it comes to researching what a mall used to look like, and if the idea is to recreate such structures from certain eras with as much as 100% accuracy, this is where things become very difficult, but it will depend on what you are aiming for. Let's say you were looking to draw a close-up shot of a large shopping mall of your choice. However, if you were drawing what a specific section of that mall used to look like, let's say during the early 90s. However, the area you are drawing is not one of the known areas that were often shown in photos or videos. This is where it becomes difficult, either reaching a dead end or looking around and in hopes of finding what's considered better than nothing, which can include commercials that were filmed at such lesser locations of the mall, or you would have to ask around and see if anyone has any memory of the mall, and if possible ask for photos or video. Finally, there is the idea of contacting the respective current owners of the property. However, this idea can also lead to a dead end if whoever is representing the company declines on offering such assistance when asked. So now let's bring up the second thing I considered lost media: vehicles that are no longer in production. So when you go to a car brand's website through its vehicle configurator, you won't see it. However, beyond looking at a car configurator, this can come down to everyone's personal experiences, because depending on what you are looking for, the pieces of media may not be available. But if you are lucky enough to always come across a specific vehicle, such as the 4th generation WRX STI, I am lucky enough to stumble across them every now and then. So to provide an example, if you are looking for the turn signals on a 5th generation Camaro, you won't be lucky when looking up such functions for said vehicle. But in person, again, if you're lucky enough to see Camaros all the time, you should be able to get an idea on how they look and the said vehicle's respective functions. To go back on lost media with shopping malls, remember when I brought up the Japanese bamboo water fountain in both the first to my interview series and my commentary video about shopping malls? Once again, it's an area that's not well known and is sadly the victim of something that became lost media. Even outside of photos and videos people took of the mall and looking at films which featured Sherway Gardens, unfortunately it's the same deal in which only the center area and upstairs food court were featured. So with all of that being said, while I do say this is the best of Mitsu Tenari's works, because out of anything he drew, this one does contain lots of details because of the setting in the drawing, and if you take a look at any artwork, you will notice mall interiors are a lot to draw. It's not easy because malls have a lot of stuff, but what do I think in comparison to other artwork I've commissioned? I dare say while this drawing scores well with lots of props and structure details, the art style is, respectfully speaking, on the more simple side of styles. I dare say it does have competition against other artists who put more into drawing details, such as artworks done by Drawings Zero. Even something that is more of a up-close shot, his artworks contain a lot of layers, at least that's what he told me, and if not score better than the drawing I talked about in this video. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video and some things I brought up about why past eras of shopping malls and vehicles that are no longer in production are seen as lost media. For anything gaming related, I did enjoy my time in Mecha Break. I enjoyed the Falcon Striker, exploring just about every corner of Mashmak, and in terms of the game's competitive mode, once I reached Grandmaster 5, I just stopped playing the game, but I had a great time experiencing the competitive aspect of the game. Even when subjected to the matches I've lost, I still managed to find matches where I actually won. But then again, I have 3 recordings I will upload together later on. They feature some fun moments I've had, and of course trying to use voice chat to communicate with my teammates. Although I wish they also communicated in voice chat, because that would have made everything a lot easier. My name is Dragon Actual, and thanks for watching. See you next time.